I'm excited to welcome everyone this morning to our third action-packed day of the Massachusetts Farm and Seed to School Conference, Seeding the Future. Thank you for joining us at our bright and early 10 a.m. session. We have three dynamic speakers that will lead today's workshop around youth-led school composting. So thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Damon. I'm one of the co-directors here at Massachusetts Farm to School. If you're not familiar with us, Massachusetts Farm to School is a statewide organization that helps strengthen local farms and fisheries and promote healthy communities by increasing local food and local food education at schools across the state. Our statewide work focuses on professional development to school staff and others, technical assistance, network building, and advocacy for farm to school policies. So I encourage you to keep an eye out for professional development and networking opportunities outside of this week's event. We have year-round opportunities to engage with farm to school work throughout the school year and in the summer. So please keep an eye out for other opportunities to engage throughout the year. I just want to let you know that we also have some Mass Farm to School staff on the session, Dinah Mack and Dina Stearns. If you have any technical difficulties throughout the session, please feel free to get in contact with them through the chat function, and they'll be able to help you, or myself be able to help you troubleshoot any tech stuff that you're having challenges with. But I will keep this short. I also just want to say keep an eye out for some exciting sessions we have tomorrow. Tomorrow, I believe, is our last day of virtual sessions, but then we have some in-person field trips starting tomorrow, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. So I encourage you to check out some really dynamic in-person events that are happening across the state. They're a great way to network with people in your region, see some farm to school in action, and get to know people doing similar work. We have a really exciting workshop tomorrow presented by also a young person at this 10 a.m. slot. She will be discussing climate action and how to be an advocate around climate change. And it's, like I said, someone that's a young person talking about how to do that work. And so it should be a great session. So I encourage you to sign on and check that out. But I'll stop there and not take up any more time from our three speakers that we have with us here today. I will go ahead and introduce them and then turn it over to them, and they're going to share their exciting work that they're doing at Northampton. So first I'll introduce Amelia Ritt. Amelia is a senior at Northampton High School and a co-leader of the Environmental Club. She loves biking, running, and spending time in her garden. She plans to attend a four-year college and major in environmental science. Lily Shipak is a senior at Northampton School and is a co-leader of the Environmental Club. She enjoys trail running, spending time with her dog outdoors. She plans to attend a four-year college, and she will run cross-country and major in environmental science. Caroline Cooper is a senior at Northampton High School and a co-leader of the school's Environmental Club. She is extremely passionate about sustainability and the environment and plans on becoming an environmental lawyer. As a co-leader of the Northampton High School Environmental Club, Caroline speaks on a variety of projects works on a variety of projects from planning bike path cleanups to planting a school pollinator garden. This year, she's helped spearhead the student-led cafeteria composting initiative, which has been a great success. So with that said, I will turn it over to the three of them. And I also just want to encourage attendees to introduce yourself in the chat. Go ahead and use the chat function to share questions and comments as they come up when they're presenting, and then we'll save some time at the end to open it up for discussion and questions. So with that, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our presentation about composting at Northampton High School. I'm Caroline Cooper.
I'm Amelia Ritt.
I'm Lily Shipak, and we are the leaders of the Northampton High School Environmental Club.
You can put it on that slide if you'd like. After attending the Youth Climate Summit held at Arcadia in the fall of this year, we decided as a club to make our goal for the year introducing composting into our school cafeteria. composting has been a subject of interest for the Northampton High School Environmental Club for a while now. As many years ago, some members started a composting program, which then later fell apart, and the club was working to reintroduce it before the pandemic hit and halted that effort. So we were looking forward to bringing composting back to NHS once and for all. After deciding on this goal, we performed a waste audit, which you can see photos of on this slide, which the custodial staff helped us with by collecting all the trash from our 4 lunch periods and leaving it on the cafeteria's loading dock where we could weigh it after school. And we wanted to perform this to see roughly how much trash our cafeteria created so that we could track our progress after introducing a composting system. The total weight of that day's lunch trash came out to be about 185 pounds, which translates to roughly 930 pounds of trash per week. And after seeing that a large amount of our school lunch trash consisted of compostable materials, we were even more driven to implement the program. Early on in the year, when we first expressed interest in starting a school composting program, we were directed to monthly Zoom meetings held by a composting group put in place by the superintendent. And these meetings were a really great way to connect with interested/involved adults and school employees in the area, who then helped us establish goals and learn more about the process. Through working with this group, we decided to focus our energy on starting a composting program at the high school before working to expand it to other schools in the area. And we began communicating with custodial and lunch staff, as well as the food service director, who is Ms. Delhanna, and the farm to school coordinator, Brian Jersky, in order to map out the necessary steps to introduce a compost and learn more about the process. And also our school administration was very supportive of the initiative, which was a great help. One of the first steps in the process was looking into how our waste was currently being disposed of and by whom. After meeting with the head custodian, we found out that a company called USA Trucking collected all of our trash. We also determined that they were able to collect compost as well. In order for USA Trucking to collect our compost, however, we had to have certain compost bins, which would have to be rented from them. And though we received a grant from a school committee member to support our initiative, the cost of renting the bins ended up coming out of the custodial budget, which we really appreciated. And as for the compostable bags, there were some available from the last time NHS had a composting system, so we were able to use those instead of purchasing new ones. After finding out that USA Trucking could take our compost, we had to look into their restrictions and where the waste was brought. And that's because only certain materials can be composted depending on where the compost is taken/disposed of. For instance, if compost is brought to gardens or farms, some meat and paper products may not be able to be composted. Fortunately, however, USA Trucking takes theirs to an industrial composting facility roughly 30 minutes from our town, which accepts any compostable products, including our compostable salad containers that we use in our school lunch and meat.
Okay, so after all of this preparation and meeting with school staff to get this started, we had to actually launch the program. And when you're running a program like this, it really comes down to 2 crucial components, which are the help of students and the help of staff. So we're going to kind of go over what each of those roles include. So this program relies heavily on student volunteers to monitor the compost bins every day at lunch, to keep trash out of the compost and to make sure that the compost makes its way into the proper bins. We have a compost bin, a recycling bin, as well as 2 trash bins. And it is tricky for students who aren't in the habit of sorting out their food to put the compost into the proper bins when the trash bins are so large and then we have a smaller compost bin. It's hard to break that habit, as well as a lot of people don't fully understand where their compostable products are supposed to go. So what we do when we're monitoring the bins is we sort people's plates or help them sort their plates to make sure that the compostable items get in the compost. We have salad containers, obviously the food scraps, also some little paper dishes, napkins that can all be composted, but that's also mixed in with like little plastic baggies and forks. So it can be a bit tricky at times. Really just helping to inform people of what can and can't be composted so that eventually they can figure it out on their own and it becomes just a habit for them. And we're just there to answer questions. And at the end of the lunch period, after the big rush of people at the trash bins, we have gloves and we dig through the trash and get the compost out of it. You don't have to get every item, but we try our best to make sure that we're getting as much compost as possible. Get that out of the trash, and then also make sure that no trash made its way into the compost during the period, because that's the main issue. Is if we have trash in the compost, it can't be composted, and then the whole program can't really run. So to get people to actually monitor the compost bins has definitely been a challenge, because a lot of high schoolers understandably don't want to spend their lunch period monitoring compost bins. It's not like the peak of fun, but we have like some regular people who do it. We all monitor it, the leaders of the environmental club, and there are some other people, but it's been hard to keep people sticking to it. So we've created some incentives. We have $25 Northampton gift cards that we have been using the loan or the grant that we got to pay for. And we give 2 of those out at the end of each month to the students who volunteered the most. For advertising, we've pretty much been like putting signs up around the school to alert people of the program and make announcements on social media as well. We've definitely been trying to get outside help from adults, because there have been members of the Kiwanis Club and other interested community members who have been interested in volunteering, but COVID has made that quite a process, and getting everyone query checked and everything is a bit difficult. So we haven't been able to get adults in yet, but our hope is that maybe next year that'll be possible, because it might be a more like steady source of volunteers than high schoolers, where it's more irregular. And for those who do volunteer, we have sign-up sheets to keep track of who volunteers and when, which we're going to show you now. So this is kind of a brief look at what the sign-up sheets look like. The screenshot in the bottom left is what it looks like from our side, as like the people who have access to the calendar. There are 4 lunch periods each day, in different colors, just to like have it fancy and organized. But there are 4 different lunch periods each day, and then there are 2 bins. There's one outside the cafeteria and one inside, that people have to sign up to monitor, and then they can click on a slot and it'll go, and then click go to appointment page for the calendar, and it'll take you to a page like up in the top right corner, where this is like the front screen once you've clicked on one of your slots. But if you look behind it, there's like these bins for different time periods, and people can click on one of them and then just save it, and it'll go to their calendar as well as alert us that they have signed up for it, so we can keep track of that. Unfortunately, this has fallen off a little bit. I think since our volunteers have dwindled a bit, it's mainly just us and a few other people doing it, and who don't really sign up because it's just assumed that they'll do it every day. But in the beginning, this was very helpful, and we're going to try to keep it up next year. So next, we're going to move on to the role of the custodial staff, which is a huge part in this process. So just kind of a look into what the custodial staff do each day to help this program run. They line the compost bins with the compostable bags that we have. We had a few boxes left over from previous years when we had compost program, as well as compost bins that we had left over, but we've gotten new ones. And they line the bins with those bags each day, and then change the lining throughout the day and take the bags out and put them into a larger container as they fill out throughout the day. Then these full bags are transferred outside to the dumpsters, where there are larger compost bins we have to rent for each month. And those are picked up each Friday. And then the kitchen staff also recently have gotten a bin of their own that they fill with food scraps and leftovers which has greatly increased our compost output, which is really awesome.
So we reached out to the head custodian because the custodial staff are so intertwined with this process. We wanted to see how they were feeling about it. And so we got these quotes from him. I'll read them now. The biggest positive in my eyes is the support from the compost students, assisting reluctant composters with help and to educate what actually is compostable. Food service does a decent job with ordering compostable containers and lids that kids use and have the option to compost daily. You need people/custodians willing to buy into doing their part to actually compost daily, and passionate students that feel they can contribute positively and educate others to realize why we compost and don't throw everything into our landfills. It's easy to start, but not easy to sustain. So we've had some pretty positive feedback from the adults that we're working with. Kind of going off of that, it hasn't been a 100% smooth process. Some of the challenges that we have faced is that there are a lot of people who don't know that objects such as plastic forks, food wrappers, and sauce packets are not compostable, or they just don't care and put it in the compost anyway. So we find that we have to do a lot of sorting for minuscule pieces of plastic that have gotten into the compost because people just dump their entire plates into the composting bin without thinking twice about it. Following that, some people were not just ignorant of the compost, but they were forcibly against it, especially at the beginning when we first implemented the composting initiative. We faced some negative verbal comments from students and even some profanity when we encouraged them to compost. However, that issue was mainly in the first week or so of the composting being in the cafeteria. So that has kind of dwindled down, fortunately. And of course, we have struggled to get an adequate amount of volunteers to man the compost bins every day. And it's really, the responsibility has really been falling on the same few people every single day, which is unfortunate. So we're hoping to get a wider group of volunteers so that the same people don't have to man the compost bins every single day. But the composting has been very successful. At our waste audit, right before we implemented the compost, we weighed 185 pounds of trash in one day, and we've decreased that to 54 pounds from composting alone. After we did our audit, after we implemented the composting, and that decreased substantially. And we have seen that people are learning. We've noticed that students have begun to sort their own plates, and they will pick trash out of the compost if they accidentally drop it in. So people are slowly but surely learning, and it is making an impact, even if there are some students who are not as excited about it. And as for the future, we have some things that we would like to improve on. The main one being better signage. We've realized that the signs stating what can and cannot be composted in the cafeteria have to be very specific in order for the right waste to end up in the proper bins. We really do need to have a good, consistent group of volunteers every day to man the composting bins. And we would love to get in touch with the Kiwanis Club and have them come in and help out so that students don't have to spend their lunch periods every single day doing this. And we really want to expand the composting system throughout the whole school district. It's very important that we implement this, especially in the elementary schools, because if they learn these habits when they're younger, they will be more likely to know how to properly compost by the time they get to high school. And if it dwindles out between elementary school and middle school, then the process starts all over. So it's really good to start from the bottom up instead of starting at the high school level like we did this year.
So on this slide, you can just see some pictures from the process. On the top left, there is a photo of the compost bin we have outside the lunchroom. And then next to that on the right, there's the compost bins inside the cafeteria. These are just some photos of the waste audit we performed, photos of volunteers pulling, sorting the compost or sitting in front of it, monitoring it, and that type of thing. And I guess now we'll open up the floor to any questions anyone has for us.
Great. Thank you so much. That was great. I really appreciate it. Yeah, the accomplishments of the program are remarkable. Just obviously in the poundage that you decreased in the amount of trash going to the waste stream, but also just in setting up the program in such a short time and the efforts that you've done. So I think I can say from certainly Mass Middle School staff, it's an impressive program that we're so excited to share today. And encourage anyone to share questions in the chat, or just, I think we're a small enough group, feel free to take yourself off of mute, shout it out, raise your hand, however you feel most comfortable. There's a question that came in from Melanie. Do you have to pay for the company to remove the compost? Where does the compost end up?
Yeah, so I believe since they were already taking our trash, actually, I'm not positive, but there may have been an extra charge for compost, but we did have to rent the bins, which was the major cost. And it's taken to an industrial composting facility in Agawam, I believe, that creates biofuel.
I have a related question. I'm Simca from Mass Farm to School, really impressed with what you guys have achieved, and just thinking about the cost, which I think we often hear people being concerned about the cost of composting, but there also is obviously a cost to removing trash. And I'm wondering if you have any sense of overall, if there's been an impact on just the removal of waste of any sort, or is the cost pretty equivalent, whether it's compost that's being removed or trash that's being removed? And I don't know, maybe this is a question for Estelle. I'm not sure, who's maybe a little in the weeds of the budget, but curious if you guys have a sense of just the overall impact on cost.
Yeah, that I bet there has been an impact. I don't think we would know exact numbers. Maybe Estelle could talk on that, but I'm sure someone at the school does keep track of that.
I don't mind chiming in. First of all, you guys did an amazing job. Wonderful presentation, yes. And so I actually don't have a specific number, only because I'm in the food service department and not really in the waste management and facilities department. But my understanding how the process of waste removal happens is really just on the number of times the dumpsters are removed. So I don't know if they go by weight as the cost being a factor. So it's worth, maybe we could even ask to get back to that about if we've been able to reduce the number of times the dumpster has been removed from the high school versus the compost based on that. I don't know if that was a helpful answer or not.
Yeah, that's great. I just think so often cost is thrown up as like the barrier, but we forget that there's a cost to the trash removal too. So
Thank you.
Sorry. Another question was just how many students attend our school, and it's under 1,000. It's around 900 something, but there are around 220 in the senior class. I don't know the exact breakdowns for other grades.
Good morning. This is Dale Hayes from Montana. Great presentation. Really enjoyed it. I have a follow-up question for Ms. Stell. In food service, did you do any composting out of the kitchen? In other words, were you adding anything into the composting that the students were doing from food prep or other food waste specifically that might be able to be composted as well?
Actually, we've just started in the high school kitchen, starting to contribute to that compost. I believe over in the past couple weeks, that's also been introduced. So trying to make it an overall process.
Well, I think if you do the overall, that ups the poundage of things you're composting and really, augments the efforts that the students are doing. And I have one other question. I don't know who it's for, but you mentioned a incentive of giving people gift cards. I wonder if there was any incentive in terms of class credit. So, there's a lot involved in this process, math, science, all those kinds of things, whether there was any, thought about actually giving students credit for being involved.
Yeah, so we did actually reach out to a lot of the science teachers at our school, and we didn't really get much of a response from some of them. But I do think that, if I'm correct, Mr. Moylan, the environmental science teacher, had talked to his students about giving them possibly extra credit for monitoring the bins, or like he was okay if they would go to lunch sometimes to monitor that. Do you know specifically what it was, Lily?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it was, since our school's grading system doesn't really account for extra credit, but I do know that he was encouraging his students to monitor the compost bins. I believe he said that they could like skip part of a class period if it meant they were helping with the compost. So that might have been an incentive for some students.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, or they were given some flexibility at their lunch, like they could stay a little later to finish up with the compost or something like that.
Thanks.
We had a couple of questions come in the chat. Hannah asked, have you reached out to any local restaurants or businesses who have a compost program to get advice or insight into how to prevent plastics getting into the compost? I'm curious how other businesses deal with this issue.
We did not actually reach out to any local businesses. We mainly just reached out to other students or schools that had composting programs to learn from schools, but that is a very good idea and maybe something we should do.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea, because like I know Woodstar has compost, and sometimes it's a bit unclear which of their like ice, like cold cups and hot cups and stuff can be composted. So I'm sure it gets mixed up sometimes, and they don't have someone sitting there monitoring it every day, and it's like a large business. So I feel like that would be great to reach out to some local businesses, definitely.
And Dynamac was wondering, what are the plans to get this started in the elementary and middle schools?
Yeah, so I know in the past, certain elementary schools, such as Jackson Street, had a compost initiative, and that was led by parent volunteers. I know David Starr, who is the adult supervisor for the environmental club, had a big role in that. So we were going to connect with him because he had successfully implemented that in one of the elementary schools. So we are hoping that we can use his knowledge from the past to kind of push that into all the elementary schools as well.
Yeah, and also the farm to school committee for like Northampton Public Schools, I went to a meeting or two with them, and I think that's one of their main goals, it seems like, for like this next period of time, I guess, like to try to really get the composting system uniform and throughout all of Northampton Public Schools, from elementary school all the way up through high school, with like a consistent system, so that, like Lily had said, it doesn't fall off in middle school or vary from school to school, so that like when people are composting at NHS, it's not like they're randomly learning how to compost as a senior in high school. They've grown up doing it at lunch every day.
Well, it looks like you had some buy-in from the middle school, from the JFK Middle School in the chat, so they're ready. And then also another buy-in from Park Avenue, from a school in Webster. So you're already well on your way to expanding your empire, your composting empire. And then Melanie had a comment. I wonder it could count towards volunteer hours for students, like community service hours required for graduation, or I was thinking along the similar lines, like National Honor Society, I think sometimes has requirements, but wondering if that's something that you've considered or explored.
Yeah, so when we were first launching this program, we reached out to Key Club and National Honor Society, and we had them both notify their members about it. Because of COVID, National Honor Society has sort of waived the volunteer hour requirements for at least this year. It's still highly encouraged, but it's not required. And so it has been a little bit more difficult getting volunteers from those groups. But we definitely did reach out to them. And we do keep track of all the kids who volunteer and how much volunteer time. And so if students need that for scholarships or, you know, a job application or anything like that, we do keep track of it. So.
Tanya, do you have a question or a comment? Sorry, I didn't sorry if I didn't see your hand earlier.
Oh no, I just raised it actually. Really great presentation, really impressed with all the work that you've been doing and how well you presented about all of it too. I work for Farm to Institution New England, fine, and I've been doing a project actually looking at compostable dishware for schools. And so my comment is just to note that if you're looking at more compostable items in terms of dishware, there are some that have chemicals in them that prevent them from being, that help them be grease, protected against grease and heat and things like that. But those chemicals are really problematic, and they can actually be a problem for your commercial composter. So just kind of wanted to flag that for you all as something to think about and consider if you're looking at compostable dishware. And also, if that's something you're already thinking about, would love to hear more about what you know about that or what you're thinking, how you're dealing with that. And then the other question I had was just wondering, some of the impact that you've shown is really great in terms of the amount of trash that you've been able to reduce, and just wondering how else you're helping to get the word about the impact that you're having out, and whether that's helping resonate with students, teachers, or getting more buy-in anywhere.
I feel like that's definitely something that we need to work on, is kind of publicity, I guess, and like spreading the word about what's going on with our program. I think like we haven't really like shared the school about our like successes with decreasing waste and stuff like that, but I think we definitely should, and like kind of spread the word about it, because people might be like more interested in helping out if they know, but we haven't really done a lot of that. It's been our senior year of high school, and we're like the only ones doing it, so it's been a bit difficult. We had some motivation struggles, but it's definitely something to work on, especially next year as like new leaders take over.
Yes, also we do run a Northampton Environmental Club Instagram, and that's where we've mostly been sort of advertising our successes. We do sort of like silly polls on our story where we have people guess how much the trash weighed or how much we reduced it by. And so then we can get a gauge of how the students think they're doing, and then usually they're surprised by how much we've reduced it by. And we also have a school news. It's called The Transcript. And we did have a segment on that about composting, which was more advertising the program than sharing its successes, but we did go on that as well.
I just want to share a comment from Brian, the farm to school coordinator in Northampton, in the chat. He said the plan is to start the process next year at the elementary schools. We've created a guide for our schools to help that process. And Dinah, you have your hand up. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, and it's so nice to see you three, and also shout out to Ms. Parrott, JFK 204. My question is, you three are just obviously such strong leaders. So my question is, what's going to happen when you graduate? What is the hope for the continuation of your environmental club, and how have you arranged for that? And then I guess I also want to know how, just as a ex-middle school teacher, how the environmental club at NHS can connect with the environmental work that the middle school has always wanted to do? It's my second, it's a two-part.
So for the first part of your question, we have 3 leaders who we kind of had a little election for, who are going to be taking over the environmental club next year. My sister is one of them, and then Theo Starr and Lydia, I don't know her last name, are going to be taking Lydia Moore are going to be taking over the club next year. And I think like they definitely want to keep it going. And I think that it's good because they have a starting point. Like we really started from nothing, and they're going to be able to grow from what we've learned this year and where we've gone. I think it's helpful that my sister is going to be one of the leaders of it because she's been already super involved in it. And also like we have that connection, so she can come to me for help if she ever needs it. But I think, yeah, we really want to like work closely with them for a little bit at the end of this year, just to kind of be there to guide them and give them advice for how to start. And also like they have David Starr, Brian is there to help them. So I think that they have a lot of resources to work with and a good starting point for where they go with it next year.
Great. Brian, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little bit on the promotion aspect that was asked a few minutes ago. First of all, awesome job. Great presentation. You guys, yeah, you guys nailed it. As far as the promotion components, we also cross promote whenever we see things that they're promoting or talking about their successes or even needing to recruit volunteers. We promote that on our Freshhampton Instagram. We also, there's a Fork and Spade section in the Gazette that we try to participate in every time that there's a new Fork and Spade I guess article out, which I believe is every other month. And so we try to promote the successes there with everything that we do with Farm to School, but including what's happening with compost at NHS and across the district. Other ideas that we've talked about that we'd like to implement moving forward are, using PTO announcements, potentially morning announcements, just, getting the word out in every really medium that we can.
And Brian, just for clarification, the Gazette is the Hampshire Gazette, the regional paper, not the school paper, correct?
Yes, sorry. Yes, correct. That's correct. Yeah.
And I just noticed Caroline and then Michelle also just shared the 2 social media handles for the ones that were mentioned. So take a look. And let's see, I saw a question from Adam Davenport wondering if anyone has seen regional school districts collaborating in buying compostable dishware to support smaller districts in transition. So sounds like a question for the 3 speakers and maybe others on the call who may be from smaller districts or have had experience with this.
To be honest, I'm not really sure. The 3 of us aren't super involved in like the ordering of compostable products or like the dishware and stuff like that for lunch. So I'm not really sure. Miss Dell might know, but I don't really know.
We belong to the Massachusetts School Buying Group, which smaller districts also participate in. But other than, we don't really purchase to, if I understand right, purchase to sell to smaller districts. Is that kind of what you're saying, to kind of bring down that cost?
Well, a regional collaboration for buying.
Yeah, so we're part of a regional collaboration.
Yeah.
For our paper products.
Great. And Adam, I don't know if you have a follow-up question for clarification, feel free to drop it in the chat or just take yourself off mute. Yeah. Other questions, comments? This is a great discussion. I appreciate it.
I apologize if I missed this, but you guys, I know you guys mentioned some funding that you've accessed, like a grant you used to get the gift cards and stuff. I'm curious if you can share more about where that came from or other like fundraising efforts you guys have done for tips for other schools.
So we have some money as a club. At the start of the year, we did a metal straw sale fundraiser, which we collected money from. We basically sent out all of our club members with straws and had them bother their teachers and friends and family members and raise some money from that. Maybe Lily, do you want to talk about the grant or?
Yeah, so one of the school committee members in our district really was excited about the composting initiative when they found out about it. And so that's how we got our hands on that grant. But I think it's very important to make sure that the school committee members or whoever is like in the higher ranks of the school in your particular district knows about it, because spreading the word is a really great way to find grants and all of that, any money that you can use.
Thanks.
I had a question. It sounds like you had some great school administrative support early on. It sounds like some of the potential challenges were in place for you, like support, obviously, from Estelle in the food service department, and it sounds like great support in the custodial department. And I'm just wondering if that felt similar across the board, or were there other administrative staff, school challenges or that you came across as you started this endeavor? I think that sometimes is the case for other districts, and just wondering.
Yeah, it was actually pretty much everyone was very supportive throughout it. Like, I don't think we really came into many issues with like administration or any of the school staff or those involved. Like, our real challenges that we faced were just kind of, getting the manpower to keep it running and just getting it going, because that was a bit of a process. But I don't think that like any people along the way made it difficult. Not that I remember, at least.
Yeah, I think our administration, as in like the principal and vice principal and all those school employees, they were very helpful in just setting up meetings for us with the custodial staff and, farm school coordinator and those type of people at the beginning of the year before we had any connections. And then we mostly just worked with those people, and we kind of stopped working with the principal, because after they had kind of greenlighted it, we didn't need to reference them for anything else. But everyone definitely was very helpful. I think maybe the only, like, if you can even call it a roadblock we ran into, was that some of the adults or employees that we were involved with were interested in implementing the compost in all of the schools or in the elementary schools before the high school, because they valued the idea of raising kids on it, like, which we think is also a good idea. But we were really interested in just starting in the high schools. So it took a little bit of convincing to be like, no, we want to start it this year. Like, we don't want to wait. But overall, everyone was very helpful.
Well, I saw, like I said, the social media information was dropped in the chat, and then also an attendee asked if the slides will be shared, and I know Simca answered that in the chat, but I'll go ahead and just say it so everyone hears that the slides will be made available to all attendees, so we can make sure to share out this great content with folks on today, and those that couldn't make it today. We're also recording this, so we'll be able to post this, and if people weren't able to attend this morning, they can watch it at a later time. So I just want to say thank you so much, Caroline, Lily, and Amelia. This was an amazing presentation with great content. Yeah, it's really impressive work that you've done in such a short amount of time, and also really nice to hear that you are thinking about sustainability of your program and passing it along, and you have that in place. And also thanks to the Northampton staff also on the meeting. I know that they have been great supporters of the program. So it's just really nice to see a holistic school approach to this type of farm to school programming. I want to encourage folks to take a look at the schedule for the rest of the week. We have exciting virtual workshops today and tomorrow that we encourage you to join. You still have time to sign up for some field trips starting tomorrow, Friday, and throughout the weekend. And lastly, I believe one of my colleagues dropped Dinah dropped a really brief evaluation for the session link in the chat. If you take 3 minutes, I think it's just a few questions to answer, give us feedback on this workshop. It would be really helpful as we move through this week and think about future conferences. So again, thank you so much to our presenters and joining us this morning. And we look forward to seeing you in another session this week. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.